everybody. Welcome to the Hidden Gems podcast on Rachel's Reviews. I'm so excited to be here today to be talking about your streaming services and trying to dig a little bit deeper. And as we do every week since the start of quarantine, we've been doing this. It's been really fun. And we are talking about HBO Max today. This is our third episode we've done on HBO Max. And I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and Ryan is here.
Hey, Rachel, so great to be with you once again. And we're matching.
That's right.
Before we jumped on, you just noticed we're wearing like the same color shirt. And I'm like, I'm wearing a Salt Life shirt, and I guess you're wearing I want to say Frozen.
It's actually a Hallmarkies podcast elf design that you can get on the Hallmarkies merch store. For artist Jessica Miller, she did a bunch of holiday themed designs last year for us, which was pretty fun. But yeah, I know we're just on the same. We're so connected today.
And we're like Hawk and Animal of the Legion of Doom. All we need is like somebody to be our Paul Ellering, and we would be set.
That's right. So how have you been?
Everything's been like I said in our live stream that we did a couple of days ago. Like, this past August was just a great month for me. It's like everything's coming up roses and daffodils for me. It's been great stuff. And I know I know we're all still going through some hard times because of the virus and everything, but yeah. And I've struggled a lot as well, but keeping that in mind, I've had a pretty good month of August, and that momentum is still going. So I'm just thankful to you, Rachel, and to everybody watching at home just for supporting this podcast. It's been a lot of fun, and I cannot believe it has been 5 months. Like, these 5 months have just flown by, and I've been telling all of my friends this year is simultaneously not going fast enough and slow enough all at the same time. Like, forget about Einstein's theory of approaching the speed of light slowing down time. Approaching the year 2020 does.
Yeah, it's like I say that the days drag, the weeks fly by, and I think that's never been more true than 2020. And we've had a pretty fun last week. We did a fun collab, a new thing on Saturday with the Movie Nerds Club, where we did our favorite Disney movies, and we were both able to be a part of that, as well as some of our friends. So definitely check that out. And we're looking forward to, it was kind of funny in our little chat. We were trying to decide what to do for October. And I had been off the Twitter for a little bit, and I come back and everybody's teasing me on their chat because they wanted to do horror films from 2010. And has Rachel seen 5 horror films from 2010s?
It's horror movies from the 2010s, like that particular decade. And God bless Larry. He has a whip-like. He has a whip-like wit to him.
Yes, he does. He's so fun. And so, but I promise I have 5. I have 5, so it'll be really fun. Well, we're excited about that. Make sure y'all check out our videos for that. So HBO Max, we are talking about today. And HBO Max has had a pretty rocky start. Of course, they were going to lose all of the DC properties, which was insane. And then they lost Harry Potter, and they lost, it seems like every day there's something new that they've lost. But so but we wanted to start out by talking about an original film that they have that we both got to watch with Class Action Park. And have you heard about Class Action Park?
I didn't hear about this specific documentary, until you brought it to my attention, Rachel. But I had known about Action Park through a video that we both watched and loved called Defunct Land. And and when I watched this, because it was like a random night, it was like 9:00 at night, and I just was like, because I live near Orlando, and like there's a theme park like per every square mile over there. So I'm interested in like the history of theme parks, and I was like, Action Park. Why have I never heard about this? So I clicked it and I watched it, and I was just sitting there like, how did this get past even the planning stages? Like, what were these people thinking? And so with this documentary, it's just like, it's like when I watched Firefest, the greatest party
Oh
that
yeah.
never happened on Netflix. It was like, all right, great idea on paper. Now you just need 5 years to just work out the kinks and make this work. Instead, they wanted to take 5 years of work and cram it into 5 months. And now the founder is in jail because of it. And it was just a mess. But
Mm.
in terms of Class Action Park, like it was a very well put together documentary, but I was just sitting there like, these people, like, they did, it was like the classic Jeff Goldblum quote from Jurassic Park. You all were too busy to think about whether you could do it, and you didn't stop to think and ask whether or not you should. I'm sure I butchered that, but I'm sure the quote rings true.
Yes.
But it was just one after another of what the heck were these people thinking. But this is one of HBO's great strengths, at least for me. They put together some great documentaries, and on my list I accidentally included two of them. I had no plans on it, but I was just looking through it and I was just like, I have two documentaries on my list this week. It was like
Oh yeah.
it was like on the Peacock video where I included both Matinee and King Ralph, which are two movies, two comedies starring John Candy from the early 90s. And it was a complete happy accident, but they somehow worked themselves, they worked out.
Yeah, I love documentaries like this. I mean, in general, I'm a pretty big documentary fan, and I don't know if that comes from going to Sundance every year, and a lot of times I end up seeing a lot of documentaries there. I don't know. I've always been interested in the behind the scenes stories of people and how things are made and how things are done and put together and the behind the scenes and I've always loved stuff like that. And so I love a documentary. And you're right about Defunct Land. It is definitely one of the best YouTube channels out there. It's so interesting. He does such a good job with that channel. And he did an episode on Action Park. And I think that this documentary does a pretty good job of showing the kind of both sides of the action park, that like what the appeal was, and then also, you know, obviously the incredible danger. um, and I especially like towards the end where they're talking about how the 80s was kind of the last decade of like freedom for children, you know, that kids could just go. And you know, I mean, I remember all the time going over to my friend's house and going over to the local. There was a just the block behind us, there was a little market called Immigration Market, and we used to go all the time by ourselves to go get stuff for my mom or whatever, and that nobody even thought anything of it. And now you'd be all nervous, though, they're going by themselves. And I mean, I'm a big believer in free range kids, so there is a movement that to try to bring that back for kids, but but I don't know, we become so like scared with, I think, school shootings and things like that have made us scared. And the thing about something like Action Park is that, yeah, it was very dangerous, but 9 out of 10 times you'd be fine. And so that's why I think it had the appeal of like you did something kind of wild as a kid.
Yeah, and even at the biggest theme parks like Walt Disney World in Orlando or California, or Universal Studios in
Mm-hmm.
Orlando or in California, there are rides there that are just like, they seem like one step away from just being like stories in the news. Like, I don't know about where it is at Disneyland in California, but over in Walt Disney World in Orlando, there's a ride called the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, where you get in on
Mm-hmm.
like this elevator and you go up and down and up and down and up and down. And it's like, thank God the cables are strong, or else it'd be one of those things that snap and then you just all fall to their deaths. So and
Yeah.
to your point about, about free range kids, Rachel, from where I stand, I personally believe, like, as long as I don't hear about you on the news, do whatever you want.
Hmm.
But there's definitely stuff to be worried about when it comes to kids. Like, I'm not saying you should, like, be like, oh, I don't care, just go do whatever. But, like, set guidelines and rules, and, like, don't do these certain things. Outside of that, do whatever you want. So
Yeah.
there's risk there, but as long as you teach the kids not to do those bad things, then they should be fine. Because I think kids are a lot smarter than people get credit for.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and it's not saying to be irresponsible. Obviously, the action park was irresponsible. When people are dying and stuff, but I don't know. I feel like in a way we've kind of hit the other extreme, and that's one thing that kind of worries me about the lockdowns and the closing of everything is that there's always going to be viruses. There's always going to be things like you're never going to be able to be out in public and have no risk. And I get it, and I'm fully supportive of this unusual time because of a pandemic that's very, very contagious. That's more than our typical flus and things. I get that, but on the other hand, like the I don't want to permanently lose that sense of freedom that the of sort of taking that risk of being with other people. Like we eventually we need to kind of and maybe it won't be until we have a vaccine for COVID. I don't know it, but I do worry a little bit that even once we have a vaccine, there will be people who will struggle to kind of embrace that freedom again, if that makes sense.
Yeah, George Carlin, the legendary comedian, had a bit where he would rant about how boring people are, and, like, how people are constantly afraid of germs nowadays. And I won't say it here because there's a lot of coarse language in there, but his basic conceit is that once if you step outside, you're going to encounter germs and mean people and just a lot of bad stuff. But there's
Hmm.
also a lot of good stuff too. It's
Right.
really up to your intuition and your thinking. And as long as you have a good head on your shoulders, you should make it through just fine. And
Yeah.
and and when it comes to your point, Rachel, about there will always be viruses, like, that's why we have a thing in our body called an immune system. And that's why I still drink cranberry juice to strengthen mine. But that's
Right.
another point for another time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm afraid of that part of the lockdown too, where kids will lose that sense of, like, playing with each other. But at the same time, there will be other ways. To take another Jeff Goldblum quote, life finds
Life
a way.
finds a way. Yeah. I mean, and that's what I kind of just appreciate about the Class Action Park as a documentary is that is sort of the exploration of the appeal of the park, sort of that the freedom that people had to do something crazy and risky and so but then also obviously showing the people who lost loved ones and stuff. It's terrible. So I thought it was a really interesting, entertaining documentary about sort of why, and also sort of why there's nostalgia for something like this. Is in something about the '80s that had that kind of freedom. So people should check it out. I think you really like it. And so let's talk about our selections for recommendations. We have my first one is actually Get On Up. This is I wanted to talk about this movie because in tribute to Chadwick Boseman. He of course passed away this last couple of weeks. I couldn't remember if we mentioned it last week. I think we did maybe at the beginning, but yeah, shocking, very surprising. And this is a biopic about James Brown, and Chadwick Boseman does a great job of playing James Brown, who had so much personality, and it was such a loud character. And I think this is a movie that a lot of people haven't seen. And if you've only seen him as Black Panther, you should definitely check out Get On Up.
Yeah, it was incredibly sad when I heard that Chadwick had passed away. Uh, he will always be the Black Panther in everyone's hearts, and that's an incredible legacy to leave behind for future generations. But when Chadwick was announced that he was going to be Black Panther, I was overjoyed because he had been in a couple of other movies that I absolutely loved. He
Hmm.
was Jackie Robinson in 42, which is one of the best baseball movies in recent times. It's an incredible movie about the life of Jackie Robinson, who was one of the first, if not the first, uh, black baseball player in Major League Baseball. Is
Hmm.
very well done. He was also in a little known football movie called Draft Day, starring Kevin Costner, and he has a great dynamic with him in that movie. And then, of course, there is Get On Up, which is one of those music biopics that I feel like nobody talks about, and I think more people should because
Hmm.
they took a unique approach to that movie in that sometimes James Brown broke the fourth wall and said I've got a crazy life and let me show you what happened. And and it was is definitely unique for sure. And Chadwick Boseman just disappears into this role. Like I don't see Chadwick Boseman playing James Brown. I see James Brown, in the heh and ha 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 and get
Yeah.
down with it. It's like, wow, Chadwick Boseman must have had to watch hours of footage to get just the voice right.
Yeah,
But
because it's not a simple role because he was a larger than life character, and he was managed to be able to catch that. And Chadwick Boseman was really good at playing these real life characters, whether it was in Marshall or in 42 or in Get On Up. And so if you haven't seen the movies, plus I mean it's just this great music, James Brown, and it also has Viola Davis, who's great, and Octavia Spencer. So people should check out Get On Up.
yeah, and one more note before we move on: the "I'm Black and I'm Proud" scene is worth the price of admission alone.
Hmm. Yeah, agreed. All right, what's your first pick?
So my first pick is from the DC animated movie universe, and it is called Justice League Doom. This tells the story of, well, the Justice League, and they're taking on an immortal villain named Vandal Savage, who has been around since the beginning of time. Vandal Savage makes, I want to say, an Injustice League, or I'm sure it has a name, but he forms the Justice League's biggest villains into one coalition to take down the Justice League by a list that Batman keeps with all of the Justice League's weaknesses, including Batman's own. And the moral dilemma of the movie is, should Batman have that list at all? Because and Batman justifies this by saying, what if one of the members of the Justice League goes off the reservation? We need to take them down before they do any significant damage. But at the same time, in the words of Sonny from iRobot, it just feels so heartless. And the movie is like just over an hour long, maybe like a skosh more, but it communicates a better Justice League story in that length of time than the Justice League movie we got 3 years ago, Snyder cut aside. It's got a great voice cast. Let me just pull up some of the names really quick because the DC animated movies tend to get a pretty good voice cast. Kevin Conroy voices Batman. I mean, we all know who he is and what he's done. Nathan Fillion voices Green Lantern. He's always a lot of fun. Michael Rosenbaum voices the Flash, and of
Hmm.
course, he played Lex Luthor on Smallville. I have not seen Smallville, though I've heard nothing but good things about it, maybe except for the final couple of seasons. And it's actually an hour and 15 minutes, so just to get that out of the way. But it's very underrated in terms of the DC animated universe movies because I tend to be more forgiving when it comes to those. minus Killing Joke because that movie is just unforgivable. But that's neither here nor there. Rachel, have you seen this one by chance?
I have not. I've not seen this one, and yeah, I'm in general a pretty big fan of the DC animated films. With the exception of the recent with the Killing Joke and Batman and Harley Quinn. Those two were absolutely atrocious, but for the most part, I like their films, so I'll have to check that out. That sounds interesting. There's a new Superman film.
Superman, Man of Tomorrow.
Yes, when I have it on order, and I think that Stanford and I are going to. I'm assuming I like it. I think we're going to do that for obscure animation in this month, so that should be pretty fun. We had never done a superhero movie or DC movie for the series, but yeah, this one sounds interesting too.
Yeah, they got
I
Zachary Quinto as Lex Luthor. That's a great choice.
mm,
And let's see, Alexandria Daddario is Lois Lane. That's another good choice.
mm.
So yeah, I gotta look into that because they've had some ones that are kind of okay, but not really that memorable. Like they did, I believe I believe it's Apocalypse War, and that was just okay. So,
Oh
but they've
yeah,
always
I
done
heard
good
about
with
that.
Superman. So here's to hoping.
Hmm. Yeah, I liked Justice League Dark. I thought that was pretty good. It was better than Justice League.
I think a
uh,
lot of movies are better than Justice League, but that's neither here nor there.
Very good. All right. Well, so my next pick is I think a bit of an underrated kind of epic type movie called Far and Away. And this is directed by Ron Howard, and because he's done many good films. And it stars Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman when they were still a couple. So they have really nice chemistry, and they play these immigrants, these Irish immigrants at the turn of the century that come to America. That's right during the Irish potato famine, and they are going to Oklahoma to. There was a thing that they gave away parcels of land to frontiersmen, and at least I think it's Oklahoma, but it's the prairies, and they gave away parcels of land, and there was actually sort of a race with wagons and tons of people and horses and stuff, and it's a pretty big spectacle, and of them finding their land, and then they stake their claim on their land, and the relationship between Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman's character. She's got the good Irish accent, and they both do a really good job. And she looks beautiful in the movie. So I don't know. It's just a fun old fashioned spectacle kind of entertainment that I think that we've kind of forgotten about this one.
Yeah, it's strange because I had no idea that I had never heard of this movie until you sent your list to me, and I was looking it up because I tend to be a big fan of Ron Howard's work and Tom Cruise's work, to be honest. And this was around the time when Tom Cruise was like nearing the height of his powers. Like he had crushed the '80s, and like he
Mm-hmm.
just like turned out banger after banger after banger. And now is and like in the '90s, he was like experimenting with different things, and people were just flocking to see him. So I'm surprised that I had never heard of this before,
Yeah.
but I'll definitely be checking that one out because it just sounds fascinating.
Yeah, and the I think it was the Oklahoma Land Rush, I think it was called, and it's just a really great sequence. I think you'll really enjoy, and yeah, maybe when we do our follow up episode, you'll have to let me know what you think. So,
Right.
what's your next pick?
So my next pick, and this is the beginning of my accidental duology of HBO documentaries. So part one of this is Ali and Cavett: Tale of the Tapes. This is a documentary about the very special relationship between, of course, Muhammad Ali, one of the, if not the greatest boxer of all time, and Dick Cavett, who was one of the first late night talk show hosts ever. Like he and Johnny Carson are like the two that started it all. And The documentary is essentially about how Muhammad Ali, when he would go on Dick Cavett's show, he would just turn into a completely different person. Like he was very, quiet and soft spoken. And this was coming from Muhammad Ali, who was, like, I'm the greatest, and just making all of these over the top claims. And of course he did back it up, like he's the greatest of all time. But like it was complete night and day. He would go from like the loud, boisterous, like the champ is here and all of that, to going on Dick Cavett's show and just being very humble and quiet, and just he didn't seem like he was talking to a late night talk show host. He was talking to a friend. And Dick Cavett is incredibly underrated as an interviewer and as a talk show host. I've seen multiple interviews he's done with the likes of Orson Welles and Alfred Hitchcock and Hugh Hefner, and just he was absolutely wonderful. And so it's this documentary is just it's really underrated, and it highlights a friendship between two unlikely people, like just who would in any other situation be like just on the opposite ends of each other. But off and on, when they would come on and they would be on the show together, they just like they talked to each other like they had been friends for years, and it was a beautiful thing to see.
I had not heard of this documentary, but I love, like I said, I love documentaries like this. It sounds kind of like in the spirit of 30 for 30, the ESPN series. This sounds really, really interesting. So I'll definitely have to check that out. All right. Well, my next choice is a bit of a nostalgic choice for me. It is Anastasia. This is the animated film from this is from Fox in their attempt to appeal to Disney Renaissance viewers, and it's one that I really loved. I was in high school when it came out. I love the romance between Anya and Dimitri. I think it's done really well. I love the animation and I love the music. It's not without its flaws. Rasputin is kind of a groaner of a villain, but it's enough kind of silly that I kind of enjoy it. But I get the complaints, especially because he's like a real person, and so the way that I mean, it's really ridiculous, but I don't know. I really like it. I really like Meg Ryan and John Cusack in their speaking roles. They had different people doing the singing, but Angela Lansbury, Christopher Lloyd are having a lot of fun, and I don't know. I just love it. Like I said, I have a lot of nostalgia for this one. And I think it's one of the better films that Don Bluth has done. That the animation is, I think, probably the best, just pure animation that he's done. And then Secret of Nim is probably his best movie, but I really like this animation, and I mean I love musicals, so it's gonna go a long way for me. Have you ever seen this?
I have actually, and and my feelings are very similar to yours. Although I will have to disagree slightly with your thing on Rasputin. I think he's fine. It's his little sidekick Bartok, voiced by Hank Azaria, that I'm not a fan of.
Okay.
It's like the voice is like, yes, Rasputin. I butchered it, but I'm sure you all understand my
Yeah.
point. But this is definitely very underrated, especially from Don Bluth, who was the guy who showed that, hey, Disney ain't all it's cracked up to be. Like, in my opinion, he made like the holy trinity of like non-Disney or DreamWorks animated films, like, and
Yeah.
outside of like at least in America, Secret of Nim, An American Tale, and The Land Before Time.
Yeah.
Like he was one of those guys like in the late 70s and early 80s who was just like, all right, Disney, I'm going to take you on. And he did for a while. And Disney had to really up their game because of Don Bluth.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's a fascinating story. There's several videos on like the Disney Dark Ages on YouTube that I just love watching. And just when the brain drain started to happen, Don Bluth was one of the first victims, and he was like, "Nothing can stop me. I'm all the way up." And he just turned himself into a legend.
Yeah, I mean, we would not have had the Disney Renaissance if it wasn't for Don Bluth, because his movies pushed Disney to be better and to compete. When he did Secret of Nim and American Tail, and like you said, Land Before Time, and I don't think we would have gotten The Little Mermaid if it wasn't for Don Bluth making better films for a little while. And then he went through a pretty rough patch for a couple of years, where some not great movies, and then he did Anastasia, which I just always have loved, and so yeah, it's one of my nostalgic favorites,
Yeah, and
and yeah,
he also directed Titan A&E, which is a movie that I've always enjoyed, but
yeah. I
just
actually
did
haven't.
not do
I've
well
never
at all.
seen that. Believe it or not, I want to see it, but I've actually never seen that one.
Yeah, it's I wouldn't say it's underrated, but I just like people always hate on it, and I just like I've never understood why. Like it's competently made, it's a good story, but it just
Hmm.
is like people are like treating it like it ran over somebody's dog or something. I'm just like, no, it's not even close to being that bad.
Yeah, yeah, it's not like Eight Crazy Nights or something like that, some atrocity. Um, so what's your next pick?
So this is the second part of my accidental HBO documentaries duology. It's Michigan versus Ohio State, the rivalry. I love documentaries that HBO does when they're narrated by Liev Schreiber. I know him more for voicing those documentaries than for a lot of his acting roles because he just has like the perfect narration voice. Like he just hits everything perfectly. But uh, Michigan versus Ohio State, the rivalry is about the rivalry between the football teams at Ohio State University and the University of Michigan. They have been feuding on the football field pretty much since the 1890s. I believe in the documentary they say it started before the first World Series and way before the Super Bowl, even before it was like the NFL versus AFL championship. So it's been going a long time. And the documentary does a great job of showing that both teams have had successful periods and very down periods, and they do a great job of highlighting the period where the rivalry was the hottest, and which is called the 10-year war, which was contested between two head coaches, Ohio State's football coach Woody Hayes and Michigan's coach Bo Schembechler. And Schembechler was Woody Hayes' protege, so it was like master and student going at it on the second week of November every year for about a 10-year period. And it's it's one of the best times in college football history, and it's also fascinating just to hear some of the stories that each other would do to like one up each other. Like Woody Hayes one time ordered these shoes that he thought were water resistant, and it turns out he got scammed. And it's simultaneously tragic and hysterical all at the same time because Woody Hayes was this big bombastic personality, and just to see him get owned like that is just it's weirdly kind of funny, but the documentary does it better justice than what I just did. But to put the period at the end of the sentence, when HBO does a sports documentary, they do go all out with it. I'll definitely be bringing up more as we continue on with this podcast,
Mhm.
but some of my other favorites are Do You Believe in Miracles, about the 1980 US Olympic hockey team that beat the Soviets, and the rivalry between Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, and just I could go on. But Rachel, have you heard of this one?
I had not heard of this one. Of course, I've heard of the rivalry that being I served my mission in Indiana, so I was kind of close to Ohio, so Midwest. You hear about all these rivalries, and I know it's very very intense, and that I think it'd be kind of nice to watch this because we're not we don't have, we're I don't think we're going to get much college football if any. I don't know what's going on this year, but the sort of I think it'd be kind of comforting a way to watch the kind of like the Last Dance was comforting to watch, and I tend to. Be a bigger fan of sports documentaries than I am of even sports, so so I think
Yeah,
I'll enjoy it.
especially
Uh,
especially nowadays, it seems like they're doing everything but the sports part.
Yeah. Then the 30 for 30s are so good. And I agree with you also. The HBO documentaries are also very good. They're kind of following the same path. So I'll definitely check that out. Sounds really good. All right. Well, my next choice is a romantic comedy and a Christmas movie all in one. So perfect for me. Um,
Rachel's in heaven right now.
yeah, that's right. It is Last Holiday, starring Queen Latifah, who I love, and she's really good. And this is about a woman who she's basically like not living a full life. She's making these delicious meals and then not eating them and eating lean cuisine because she's trying to lose weight, and but she has all these things that she wants to do. She's working in this job and with Ella Cool J as her boss, but she's basically treated terribly, and she just is not happy in her life. Well, she finds out that she only has like a month to live or whatever. And turns out that her records were messed up, and she actually isn't sick. I guess spoiler alert. But she decides that she's going to have this dream holiday weekend because or week that since she doesn't have much time left, and so she goes to like Switzerland or someplace like that, and she eats all the fancy French food. She goes and rides the difficult Black Diamond or whatever, and she takes risks that she would not have normally taken before, and it's really sweet and heartwarming, and yeah, I think you really like it.
Yeah, this movie is just wonderful. I have seen it so many times, it's not even funny. It's such a nice movie. It's not going to change the game in terms of filmmaking or storytelling, but what lacks in that, it makes up for in just some memorable characters, at least for me.
Hmm.
Queen Latifah is wonderful as Georgia Bird. Like you said, she's incredibly conservative at the start, but when she cuts loose, like it's just so fun to watch. Like she orders the entire secret menu at the restaurant that she is eating at, and it's like just the most. It's like a binging with Babish video. It's the most delicious thing you've ever seen in your
Hmm.
life.
Yeah.
And LL Cool J is great in this as well. Timothy Hutton is in there, who has been an actor for a very long time. And one of my favorite Oscar winners, Ordinary People, where he won an Oscar for that. And Giancarlo Esposito is in there as a senator. And for the longest time, I was like, as I was watching Breaking Bad, I was like, okay, this guy playing Gus Fring sounds so familiar. Where have I seen him? Sure enough, he was the senator in Last Holiday. And I was like, wow, he was so nice in that show, and now he's so evil here. Why?
Yeah.
And he's such a nice guy. Like I would vote for that guy, regardless of party. Like I'm sure you do it better than a lot of the other people in there, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
It's just like you said, it's just a very fun movie about a woman who just realizes I don't have much time left, so I got to live my life while I still have it. It's like the quote from Shawshank: "You either get busy living or get busy dying."
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. And Queen Latifah is so warm and lovely. And yeah, I don't know why this one isn't kind of more talked about as a really lovely little romantic comedy, but it's definitely, I think, worth checking out if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, what I like about this character is that not only is she very warm and lovely, like you mentioned, but she can also like she's not going to be walked all over.
Yeah.
Like when she quits her job
Well, she
at that
grows.
yeah, exactly. And when she quits her job, it's one of the most satisfying like I quit moments that I've seen in any movie ever. It's
Hmm.
like one of those like the guy tries to put on like a motivational CD and she snaps it in half. I'm like, that's wonderful.
Hmm.
And when Alicia Witt's character Miss Burns is on the massage table and she is like, "This hurts. Why are you hurting me so much?" Like Georgia just like gets up off of her table, waddles over there, and she is like, you are paying this woman to massage your back, and this is the thanks that you give her. And paraphrasing, but I'm sure you
Yeah.
understand my meaning.
Yeah.
And she just like chews this woman out, and I'm like, shout out to you for
Yeah.
standing up for all the massage people in this world.
Yeah, just people working and trying their best, and talking about this, we I really should do an episode of this movie for Hallmarkies podcast, because there's a lot to talk about actually with this one, I think. So I look forward, maybe as a bonus, this holiday season, maybe we'll talk about last holiday over at Hallmarkies podcast.
Maybe we can
But
get in touch with director Wayne Wong and we can do a watch along like we did with Twinkle All the Way.
hey, you never know. You never know. So what's your next pick?
So my penultimate pick is a TV show from the wonderful people William Hanna and Joseph Barbera. It is Johnny Quest.
Mm-hmm.
This is this was a show from the late 1960s, and this is one of my father's favorite TV shows. And he showed it to me growing up, and it was just something that I fell in love with as well. It's the story of a doctor named Dr. Benton Quest who has a son named Johnny, and he has I want to say a brother, but it's more of like an adopted brother named Haji, and they have they have a bodyguard slash teacher named Race Bannon, and the show is basically about how Dr. Quest is always asked by a government or the US government to help out with various missions, and they go to these exotic locales to help out with something in archaeology or espionage or whatever, and they always get involved with a dastardly villain. It happens every time. It's very formulaic, but what it makes up for with the formulaic stuff, it makes up for in just some wonderful animation and just some of the most action-packed animation television you'll probably ever see. Like I said, this was created by William Hanna and Joseph Barbera, who created way too many animated shows to go into, at least on this
Yeah.
podcast. But they also created The Flintstones, which was one of the first primetime animation shows ever. It created just so many other animated shows up to this day. They created the Jetsons and Johnny Quest, like I mentioned, and Huckleberry Hound and Yogi Bear, and just like I said, I could go on and on. Actually, mental note, I should probably make a Hanna-Barbera tribute video at some point because I'm a big fan of theirs. But side road, Johnny Quest is there's definitely some parts that are of the times, but outside of that, it's held up tremendously well,
Mm-hmm.
and at least to the point where they got a reboot, if you want to call it, in the 90s called The Real Adventures of Johnny Quest,
Oh.
which, minus the horrible CGI, still does hold up to this day. So
Mm-hmm.
Johnny Quest is definitely flown under the radar, I believe.
Cool. Yeah, I've never seen an episode of. My Hanna Barbera cred is pretty low. I that's it's just the probably the brand of animation that I'm the least knowledgeable on. Like I famously have never seen an episode of Scooby Doo. I I somehow I just missed the whole Hanna Barbera train. So that's something I need to work on. But it sounds like a
There's
lot of
a
fun.
there's a part of me that wants to recommend we do like Boomerang, the streaming service there, but as
Ooh.
someone who grew up watching the Boomerang television network and now how it's just a pale shell of its former self nowadays, I kind of don't want to out of
Mm,
protest, so I'm torn.
yeah. Well, my last choice is also a spy kind of movie, but it's Spies in Disguise. And I was surprised to see this on HBO Max because I just assumed it would be coming to Disney Plus since they own Blue Sky now. So I was sort of surprised that it was on HBO Max. But this movie, I'm not going to say it's like the most memorable film to ever exist, but I think that it's charming, and it's got Will Smith and Tom Holland. And the part of I didn't like about the movie was I don't like that he turned into a bird, but there's still enough to like as far as sort of a spy movie for kids. And I liked the message of peace and nonviolence. I think it's really good for kids to see, and I think the animation is really nice. Some of the voice casting is a little weird, like why they have Reba McEntire playing one of the FBI. Like it's just a little strange, but it's pretty fun. The action is fun, and it has some nice humor, and particularly the Tom Holland character, and like I said, his belief in nonviolence is pretty cute. Do you see this?
I meant to in theaters, but I didn't get the chance to because that December was pretty busy for me. So
Yeah.
it was one of those things that just definitely I definitely missed. But I do want to go back and take a look at it. And I'm actually a Reba McEntire fan.
Oh,
So
I absolutely love Reba. I just thought it was a sort of a strange choice. She's such an iconic voice for her to be playing
Reba
this
McEntire,
yeah,
FBI.
I just thought it was sort of a strange choice for this agent. I don't know. Maybe but yeah, absolutely I love Reba. But
Next thing you know,
I don't
Dolly
know.
Parton will be a part of the CIA.
Yeah, that's it was just so strange to pick such an iconic voice to play like this kind of stuffed shirt type character was strange, but
Yeah.
yeah, she did fine. So I guess it's fine. My main I really don't like most of the stuff with the birds, but I it has enough positives to outweigh the things I didn't like about it.
Yeah, George Strait will be in the NSA.
Yeah, that's right. All right, what's your last pick?
So my last pick is from 2007. It's one of my it's one of those movies that I absolutely love, but nobody else does, I think, and it's called August Rush. And this was directed by Kristen Sheridan. It was written by Nick Castle, who also wrote he also wrote Major Payne and Escape from New York in his career. And just the the dynamic, just knowing that this guy wrote a goofball military comedy in Major Payne, a very serious post-apocalyptic movie in Escape from New York, and August Rush is just like one of those. I'm just like, wow, that is quite a range.
Yeah, he's
But
got
um,
variety there.
but August Rush is about a young boy who calls himself August Rush, who is an orphan, and he runs away to New York City to try and find his parents. And he is incredibly gifted in music. And it turns out his parents, who through a series of events that I will not spoil in case anyone has not seen this movie, uh, they get separated, and each other goes on to live their lives to varying degrees of success, but there's a hole in their hearts that they cannot fill, and they do not know why. But through a series of other events, they eventually end up in the same city and in the same vicinity as each other, and by the end, they all end up together as a happy family. And the cast in this movie is just great. Freddie Highmore is in there, who has done a lot more TV lately than actual movies, but he's been in Bates Motel, and he's on a recurring show on ABC called The Good Doctor, which I've seen a few episodes of and have enjoyed. Kerry Russell is in there, who was under a hood in The Rise of Skywalker, but was a
Mm.
part of The Americans and Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and a bunch of other smaller movies, and she's really good. I'm a big fan of hers. Jonathan Rhys Meyers is in there too, and Terrence Howard's in there, and another great performance from the late Robin Williams. May he rest in peace.
Oh, I forgot he was in
And
that.
he actually taps into a little bit more of his sinister side. Like, it's not the typical Robin Williams, like laugh a minute Robin Williams. This definitely toned down, but this is tapping into more of like the 1 hour photo Robin Williams, or maybe even a little bit of the Good Morning Vietnam Robin Williams.
Mm.
He plays a villainous role, and it's very weird if you just know Robin Williams for being, like or not Patch Adams, but Mork and
Mm-hmm.
Mork and Mindy, or like more of his other comedic
Mm.
stuff. He does
Yeah.
a great job, but it's definitely against type. The movie is just, it's very heartwarming. It's got a great message, and it's got beautiful music done by good people too. So
Mm-hmm.
definitely check it out if you haven't.
Yeah, I will definitely have to watch this one. I actually haven't seen this movie. I remember when it came out and hearing good things, but it's just one of those ones I've never seen. So I'll have to definitely.
Definitely be up your alley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds really good. Great cast. So, very good. Well, we did it. I think that's a very solid 10 movies there that people can see plus class action park. So,
A-
yeah, you can have a pretty fun weekend, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let us know what you're watching on HBO Max. What have you been enjoying over there? And what you think of any of these films that we've talked about. I'd love your thoughts in the comment section or on Twitter. And Ryan, where can people find you?
They can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at RyanCam20, and of course my YouTube channel, Ryan Cam's Movie Reviews. I just released my review for Tenet, which that was a lot of fun to
Yeah.
record, and just like it was a movie that I had to think like several days of till I finally like fine tuned it in my head. So it was definitely a labor of love. And like I said, I'm a part of the Movie Nerds Club. That comes out once a month, so definitely subscribe to that. And of course, the AFI project. I before I jumped on with you, Rachel, I was editing the video for the best years of our lives. And
Mm.
then, of course, there's Sound of Music and King Kong and Treasure in the Sierra Madre and just a lot of others. Plus, I've got a big series in the works coming up for October revolving around Halloween. So, without like getting on my knees or e-begging or anything like that, if you have not subscribed, now is like as best a time as ever to go do so because I'm working very hard on it. I've got like I feed off this, I live off this, and it just like it's just it's been a lot of fun working on the channel. Anyway, I'll step
Yeah.
down from the soapbox and pass it off to you, Rachel. But it just yeah, I'm excited now.
Yeah, you all need to subscribe. It's good stuff, really good. And yeah, we have a lot of good stuff going on for Rachel's reviews. This week we'll have had our female film critics panel on Wednesday. So make sure you listen to that. I know it's going to be really great. Yeah, a lot of other fun stuff. So check that out. And also at the Hallmarkies podcast, we have another great week. This last week, I had Marissa Serafini on where we talked about all 5 versions of the Parent Trap. There's lots of fun stuff happening over at Hallmarkies podcast. We're going to be doing a special bonus episode with my friends from K-pop Converters. We're going to be talking about K-dramas next week. So we have a lot of fun stuff happening. It's kind of a nice in-between month where we don't really have a whole lot to cover. So we can talk about some out of the box stuff over at Hallmarkies podcast. So anyway, a lot of fun stuff. So thanks so much. And we'll talk to you all later. Bye, everyone.
Bye.